Get in raw.
Let's get into it. 1, 2, 3. Let's get some more. Have it in. Some more. Just give some more.
Why, hello, everyone out there in whiskey land. Welcome to My Whiskey Den, your favorite public access whiskey review show where craft whiskey is king.
Did you say whiskey bland?
No, I said whiskey land.
Okay.
Maybe they're having bland whiskey. If you are, we hope that changes this evening, because that is terrible if you're having bland whiskey. All right. Thank you, everyone in the chat, for being here. Oh, geez, they're already. Oh, I was reading the chat. It already seemed exciting. Way to go, everyone out there. Mike, Mitch, thank you for being here again this evening. It's always a joy when we're talking whiskey, and especially when I don't have to be in charge. We're going to put Mitch in charge tonight and let him lead the way. But before we do that, Mike, do you want to tell everyone about the Bar Card Co-op and our lovely friends in it?
Sure, I can do that. All right. We are proud members of the Bar Card Co-op, which is a collection of friends who create content for the whiskey and other distilled spirits public. Distillers Talk is the oldest show. The new episodes arrive at the end of the work week. It's a conversation with people from distilleries and distillery adjacent, getting into the weeds with their interviews. And just in case you didn't think that was nerdy enough for you, One Piece at a Time Distilling Institute. This is a show where Alan Bishop answers your questions. Any questions about distilling, he puts them to the test, and that includes mash bills, equipment, and methodology. New episodes come out randomly, so subscribe. There could be 5 in a week. There could be 10 in a week. There could be 1. Just depends on the viewer questions that come in. We have Bourbon Turntable, home of the silkiest voice on YouTube. It's the mix of love. They mix the love of whiskey with the love of music. I'll get it out one of these days. They have had interviews with musicians, writers, distillery folk, many 2-part episodes. They just had a live one last week, which is another great episode of theirs. I'm sure Kevin will chime in if he comes in tonight and tells us what's coming up. But they've had, I know what it is. This week they're doing one on comparing Blantons to a band. So you can figure that one out. That
should be interesting, though.
Oh, I know. It should be very interesting. So then if you have ghosts, you have everything. And this is a show about the spirits among us, not necessarily the spirits in a distillery. There's a lot of unexplained things going on out there, and this is a very well done show. This one is only on Spotify. They have done 2 seasons. 3rd season will be coming up at some point. But all the other shows are on Apple, Google, Spotify, wherever you get your podcasts. And Bourbon Turntable, they do their shows also on Wednesdays on the YouTube. One thing I do want to say, though, before we get started, because I know we're a couple days past, but I would like to raise a glass in honor of our friend Spencer, who is in the chat.
Yes.
For Spencer had to do what so many of us have had to do too many times, and it really sucks. So, Spencer,
get a little sip here.
This will be for Libby.
Mm-hmm.
Cheers to you. Cheers to Libby. All right.
Ooh. Sorry. Maybe I shouldn't have started on that. But I have that ready now. So I got a little taste of the future, which is interesting because, never mind, I'm going to shut up about it. I'm going to shut up about what I tasted. But at this point, Mitch, who was gracious enough to join the show recently, he said maybe this was an idea. It's a whole series. It's a 4-part series. It's 15, 20 whiskeys. I don't know how many you have us drinking. Tonight it's only 4. So
it'll be over. It'll be closer to 20. It's just I ran out of sample bottles. So that was my bad. I thought 30 would be enough, and I was wrong. So effectively 4-part series because realistically in the barrel world, you can break it down to 3, maybe 4 things that a barrel does. The first thing it does is it removes flavors. The second thing it does is it adds flavors. And the third thing it does is changes flavors. The fourth thing you can kind of throw in there is just kind of like some weird, funky things that you can do with barrels, like finishes, small experimental barrels, just things like that. So it's fun. So I used to be a cooper. I was a cooper for 4 years. I went through Moonshine University's barrel maturation class. Both my folks were forestry majors. / I read a lot of super nerdy books about so I'm pretty well ready to talk about this. But a little basics about whiskey barrels. In America, they are overwhelmingly made with white oak, and they have to be charred. And for bourbon, it has to be a brand new barrel. And that's very important because white oak has a bunch of compounds in it that other trees don't have. And those compounds simultaneously add flavor, they change flavor, and they affect the whole chemistry of why the barrel works to both simultaneously hold liquid and allow air to get in and mingle. We're starting with removing flavors because there's only one thing that does that, and that's charcoal. So when you char a barrel and you actually set the barrel on fire, that's what charring is versus toasting. So whenever anybody talks about toasting a barrel, they just did the same thing they do for charring without actually setting it on fire. You can get super nerdy with it and like control the temperature range and toast for a certain amount of time at a certain temperature, move to a certain amount of time at another temperature to try and develop different flavors. But that would be for the adding flavor portion. So this is all about charcoal is the most important part of aging whiskey, in my opinion, because we are going to start off with something from MB Roland, which is probably my favorite craft distillery, just because it's called Kentucky Black Dog. And it's called Black Dog because they have a series called Dark Fired Whiskey. And what they do is they take a third of the corn that goes into their mash bill and they dark fire it, which is a process that's common in tobacco in that area of Kentucky. And what it is they effectively smoke the corn. And it is a 9 to 12 day process that they smoke this corn for. And effectively they have a nice big old smokehouse, and they just put a nice big old slab of hardwood down there and then cover it in sawdust. And then they just put a little hole in the sawdust and just pour charcoal in there, and it just smolders for 3 or 4 days. And then when it goes out, they do it again. And then when it goes out, they do it again. So effectively what they're doing is, right, the first step, they're drying the corn out, because to get that smoke to really stick on there, they rehydrate the corn before they put it in there. So the first smoke dries it out. The second smoke dries anything that the first smoke missed, and then starts to kind of get that smoky flavor on there, and it turns the corn just a little bit darker. And the third smoke is all about just darkening the corn. And they do that with tobacco because, right, if you start off with, green tobacco and you smoke it this way, you end up with super dark tobacco. And it provides a really interesting flavor note for tobacco. If you're a cigar guy, the Kentucky Fire Cured series has that tobacco in it from that area of Kentucky, actually. So fun times there.
It's neat.
But this is Black Dog instead of White Dog. So this is what comes off of the still, unbarreled, unaged, and at 90 proof. Okay. So this is the baseline. So this is before anything has been stripped out of it. I chose this whiskey because smoke, a lot of sulfur compounds, and charcoal eats sulfur compounds.
Okay.
So
And when you first poured this, when I had the sip when we were toasting before, I immediately went up to my nose, and it smelled familiar. I was gonna say, but it's like, well, I've had this before. Dark Fired was years ago.
Okay.
Jeffrey Patron introduced it to me as one of the first smoky whiskeys, American smoky whiskeys I had. Like one of my first experiences to it, and when I had it, I was like, oh my God, that's what American smoke is. I haven't, I had so much Scotch and even Connemara where I had, peated other accents to it or a smoked thing to it. But it was the one that first had that, and it was really good. I mean, I had a hard time not sharing the bottle or smashing the rest of it. Just went away. And just before we go any further, because we confirmed it earlier today, on June 12th, we'll actually have Mudcat Mike from MB Roland on. Will be for an evening with. So keep that in mind. And also next week is Distill America preview week, because we're going to be having Fred Swanson and Adam Casey on to discuss what's going to be going on the 20th. We'll all be there. If you don't have tickets yet, go get them. They're still available, and we'll hang out because I'm excited about going down there. I get 2 nights. Off. I don't know how I did that. It's going to be awesome. So sorry, Mitch. I had to plug shit. It's good to go.
No, please. Anytime you want me to pump the brakes, just
no. I just if I don't get those things out of the way, it'll be towards the end of the show, and I want everyone to remember that. That's more my bad than anything else. I should have jumped back in before you started. But
he's got the whiskey Tourette's.
I do kind of a little bit. I got the day Tourette's. Okay, we're going back to this now.
So,
okay.
What questions y'all have, and what do y'all taste?
Okay, I poured these early, and I was nosing this. I've had the Dark Fired. It's been some time since I had it. I remember really liking that Dark Fired. Mm-hmm. That was just so the way that the smoke was done on that, and I'm sure still is done the same way, was unique amongst other whiskeys. Some of them, they do it, and it's just so theirs, and that's one of them. It's like, oh, this is too much fun. But the first time that I nosed it, I was like, it can't be what I'm smelling. But what I was smelling was overcooked corn on a warm plastic spoon. Like you've been stirring that up there on that plastic.
Right on the part where it gets to the melty edge.
Yeah. But then after hitting it again, then it was grilled cornbread. If you've ever made grilled cornbread. And the funny thing is, I've gone back to it and let it sit like we're talking. I nose it again. I'm like, yep, there's overcooked corn on a warm plastic spoon again. And then I nose it again. It's like, yep, there's that grilled cornbread again. And none of this is negative at all.
Oh no, I love this stuff.
Oh, I'm digging it a lot. I like this a lot.
Like when you're getting like that plastics, it was almost to me it has like a little bit of a Scotch note. Like coming in, like when you're getting to some of those little more aggressive ones, the peated ones, it's not that, but it has something similar to it. Like you said, like that plastic edge, that little bit of a note to it. It has this little bit of a light burn. It's not as deep. It smells like if someone they tried to peat it but pulled it off like halfway through. If you were looking at it from like a Scotch perspective of like a deeper Lafroig or
you can't peat that. This is America. We use corn.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. So
this is pretty interesting.
Right. So to me, I call it like magic marker or, expo marker or permanent marker. It's that little like just behind that smoke, kind of like that melted plastic that Mike was talking about. So those are, when you get like Ardbeg Wee Beastie or whatever that super peated Irish was, Connemara, that's like asphalt. Those are those like super intense phenols that are coming through.
Wow.
So good. But
it's like buttered burnt corn. Like that's just where you leave it in long, like it has the husk on it, and you leave it in, but you pull it off, and like the inside is like that brown color. It's like kind of gone past a little edge cooking. But you put enough butter. It's at a state fair, and you jammed it in the butter, the big butter thing, and it just comes out soaking in it.
Yeah,
that's what I'm getting on the flavor here.
No, I am too. I'm getting that. It's like you get that little bit of the corn, but then you're getting the part that's just got that heavy char and texture. Yeah, this is and then
It almost tastes like
alcohol.
it almost tastes like it's been in the barrel a bit. Like that, it had that little edge char is kind of neat that pulls through from just the smoke like that.
So that's kind of the dark fired process, right? They are literally, not only are they drying the corn, they are it's called dark fired because it is getting the corn dark. So it's kind of doing that Maillard reaction on the corn rather than in the still. So it's getting kind of those toasty kind of fun notes for the corn.
Now, are they just doing yellow dent, or are they doing?
No, they do white corn. They do exclusively
Really?
white corn. Yep.
Really? Okay, because I would have that makes the smoking, the dark firing process more exciting because for me in the past, white corn has not been as flavorful as other heirloom corns.
It's softer.
Yeah, I was gonna say it doesn't
It
have
is
the hit.
It's still a dent corn, right?
Yeah,
It's just instead of yellow dent, it's white dent. So it does have kind of that harder shell, which is where a lot of that flavor is going to come from. But also a lot of those colors, they come from proteins, and those proteins, will kind of break down in the still if you've got a pot still, and then eventually esterify and be super fun later on. But white is a complete lack of proteins, so it's kind of interesting, right? But it creates a much softer sweet than kind of the yellow dent or anything like that, in my opinion.
No, you did. I've been sipping, tasting. I'm finally letting it sit, and it's really interesting letting it sit there because it does get, at least it feels a little more viscous than it did, but you're really getting not so much the burnt corn, but just like slight char corn.
Yeah,
and,
not burnt.
Yeah.
I wasn't saying. Yeah, they're just clarifying on.
I was going to save some of this, but
it's not like it's burnt. It's just like it has that brown layer, like the state fair, where it's got a brown layer to it. It hasn't gone to black. Burnt is like too much for it,
right?
Maybe a couple grill marks.
If you've got black grill marks, it's done right. If the whole thing's black, it's bad.
Black
marks. Yeah.
Yes, we're not talking kiln fired.
Okay, I'm gonna hold this here, and I'm gonna. What's the next one you want us to pour?
So the next one is going to be the bourbon. So this is MB Rollin Dark Fired Bourbon. This is only in Kentucky. So super fun stuff. The one I gave y'all is batch 11. It's 112.5 proof. It is 45% white corn, 17% rye, 5% malt, and 33% dark fired corn. So it's the same mash bill as the Black Dog.
Okay.
What? All right. Can you tell me the mash bill again? Just because so I can write it down on my nerd notes.
It is 45% white corn, 17% rye, 5% malted barley, and 33% dark fired corn.
And a third again.
All right.
Kind of like the mesquite wood from Santa Fe. It seems to be about a third of whatever you're doing is smoked with something, and that's how you get the flavor without being too overpowering.
Instead of creating American Octomore.
Sorry.
And honestly, if somebody were to do an American Octomore, what would be great is if they would do the 3 types of release every time that they did that and come out that would be a lot of fun.
It'd be fun. I'd like it.
Or maybe that would be an independent bottler that reaches out every year and gets 3 smoky American whiskeys and do that. That's a sidebar, but a dream.
It's a good dream.
Oh,
I'd be down for that. So this is a bourbon. So this means that this is a brand spanking new charred barrel, and their barrels are number 4 char and medium toast. So because it's a number 4 char, it has the most char available commercially. So technically, if you follow kind of the char scale of 1 to 4, the heaviest char barrel that's ever been made was a char 7. It was an experiment that Buffalo Trace made. It leaked terribly, and they said if they'd left it in the flame probably 10 more seconds, the whole barrel would have caught on fire, and they would have effectively been aging in just charcoal shaped like a barrel instead of an actual barrel. Apparently, it didn't really make that great a whiskey because, charcoal removes flavors. You really want the stuff behind the charcoal. That's what really adds the flavors. So,
okay. Question: what was the char on the? Let me ask this differently. The char that MB Roland uses, they use the same across the board.
Yep.
Or do they vary it? Okay.
So they use overwhelmingly number 4 char, but they have some number 3s. So the overwhelming majority of everything they put out is a number 4 char.
Okay. Wow. And are they, again, not knowing their process, whatever, are they pot or column still?
They are pot still.
Okay.
I would have guessed that. With the oiliness on the Black Dog.
Oh, yeah. Right. Gotta love.
Okay, well, this is...
So to me, this is insane. So this shows just how much filtering a barrel does. So everybody likes to talk about a still being made out of copper to help pull those sulfur notes out and create copper sulfides, and it eats away the still as you distill. That's romantic BS. It happens, but the overwhelming majority of sulfur gets pulled out by the barrel. You can distill in 0 copper. And if you barrel it, you will taste no sulfur. Copper's just really easy to work with and heats really well. That's why it's made with copper. Now that we have modern manufacturing processes, stainless is kind of becoming a thing. But
give your judgments.
Rant over. Sorry.
You give your judgments. I was going to let you go.
It's like, you really don't if you're going to barrel it. Okay. But, when you go from the White Dog to this, you almost lose the smoke.
Yes.
And it just becomes this lovely, fruity, slightly charred, bourbon nose to me.
Slightly charred. Like you said, almost like a molasses cookie that's got fruit on the inside of it, like you get at Christmas, where it's got like a little bit of fruit on the inside of it. Light frosting. This is it, and like you said, the smoke on this almost goes down to like this weird bake smoke on this. It doesn't.
So the nose is wildly different, but you have to drink it though.
Okay, sorry.
The smoke does come back on the palate.
Yeah, but it's not. It's not a heavy smoke. It is
right.
This is not a direct comparison, but this is just like the memory thing that comes up. This is the sexy smoke like Colkegan.
Mm-hmm.
So.
Rich,
when I had Colkegan, this is where my brain went. But I have access to this. Less so Colkegan, right?
Yeah, that's true.
This is like sexy, sweet, fat boy, smoky whiskey. This is
like you said. What is neat is how much, and it's not overwhelming. It's subtle, but how much the smoke comes through that I wasn't getting it on the nose. Maybe that's because we had the White Dog before and it was much more overpowering in that one, but still.
So if you can leave a little bit, of everything I sent so you can A, B, C, D compare them. It's kind of fun, but you don't have to. I'll see you in a month.
No, that's what I've been doing. So
I did this specifically because, this shows just how much of the kind of those phenolic harsh notes that charcoal helps filter out. And this is the easiest way to see it, is when you look at those phenols, those sulfites, and all that other stuff. Because if you're trying to do it with a normal bourbon and you're like, hey, what note got lost, it's really hard to follow that one note through White Dog versus Young versus maybe multiple uses of a barrel, because it also adds flavor, so that flavor could still be there. It's just buried amongst all the additional flavors that barrel aging can provide. Whereas smoke, you don't lose smoke in any way except through filtering it through charcoal.
It's like caramel buttercorn.
Yeah.
And it's almost like I can't tell, just tasting it, like I can't, it was like it was around the smoke. Like it wasn't in like a big smoker, but you were smoking meat next to the one you were grilling corn.
So, fun story, they're on their 5th smoker. So, right, when you build smokers out of wood, they burn down. So
they smell great.
So they burned 3 smokers down, and then they rebuilt the 4th one not out of wood. And then Kentucky, we get tornadoes. So a not tornado came through and just flattened the smoker before they even got to use it. So they had to rebuild the 5th smoker. And that's the one they're on. It's like Monty Python. I built a castle and it fell into the swamp. I built the 2nd castle and that one fell into the swamp. I built the 3rd castle. That one burned down and fell into the swamp. But the 4th castle. Like, that's kind of what they're like with smokers. And apparently this one's kind of caught on fire a couple times, but it's mostly concrete and metal, so they can catch it before the whole thing goes. Which I think is just the best story about a distillery ever. Because if anything ever catches on fire at a distillery, you're basically like, all right, so we got 2 options, guys. We can run and hope to live, or we can just call people and let them know bye. Like, because stills are bombs, right? Barrels are effectively bombs. Like, you're just kind of
Hey, I'm just hoping for the slow burn.
And they're just like, yeah, well, we catch things on fire pretty regularly here, guys. I think that's hilarious.
So this has that the it's not the same note, but it has that buttery quality that I really, really like about Glens Creek. But this has that corn and so it reminds me of like, well, if you've ever been to like one of the, as every town has a popcorn place, a place where everyone buys all this stuff for holidays. But if you've ever been by like when they're just finishing up a batch of caramel corn and that warm smell off of that, you get the caramel in there and maybe it's been mixed in with a little bit of the popcorn that's fresh off there with butter on it and stuff. So it's got that little extra butteriness and warm caramel. I like this a lot.
I think I remember it very well. I was like, I destroyed a bottle of it.
I'm gonna have to get some now.
I think I have 5 bottles of it.
Just
it's one of those things,
tornado.
right? It's really hard to find outside of the distillery. So every time I would see it, I'd just be like, I'm buying all that you have. How much do you have? And they'd be like, 1. And I'd be like, oh, well, I'm buying the 1. So
I am true to my word.
So I think the most anyone's ever had before was 2. And I bought both of them, right? And that'll show you like how little I find this.
But I think that might be the one I remember because it was. I thought it was just like beautiful, but I'm gonna let it go. I almost switched over to the whiskey because I keep my hands off this.
If you honestly had told me though, if you just gave me this and you said, guess where this is from without telling me, I honestly would not be surprised if you said, oh, this came out of a distillery in the north part of Texas near the Oklahoma border. I'd be like, I could see them doing this.
Something similar to it. Yeah, I know what you mean.
Very similar to it.
Yeah.
So of course I don't go anywhere without alcohol, and I brought a bottle of Iron Root down there, and I was like, hey, these is small craft distillery in Texas, pot still kind of like y'all. They just experiment a little more with like heirloom grains, and I told them the proof, and they're like, "Oh, that's coming." And then they drank it, and they're like, "Holy crap, that's good! This doesn't drink anywhere near like 123 proof." And I was like, "Yeah, it's really good though, isn't it?" So
Yeah. It's I think like the cohesiveness of the flavors, they flow, they they meld into each other.
That's a very nice that hits a lot of really good bourbon notes without being I mean, for as much corn as in it, it is not overwhelmingly corn like, let's say, a Knob Creek. I like Knob Creek single barrel picks. They're great. That's got a high percentage of corn, tastes like corn. This has much higher percentage of corn, but the way that it's done, it's like it does not taste like you're drinking a very high corn bourbon.
they also they mash in. All right, so this is super nerdy, but they mash in at a slightly higher temperature than a lot of people. They mash in at 200 degrees with their corn rather than like 190. And normally people try to mash in at the lowest possible temperature because it costs money to heat water up. And that's got to do something to the flavor of the corn. Just because, right? Like if you cook anything at a higher temperature, it'll change the flavor of the corn. And I think that might be part of it. Of course, that's me talking out of my butt a little bit, but like,
I like
it is what it is.
Go for it.
What you said makes sense. So like if you're going to do it at any point higher, it does make a difference. You know, same thing like proofing it. You know, a couple degrees or a couple percentage points could make a huge difference.
Mm-hmm. So that was the bourbon. Next, we're going to move on to the dark fired whiskey. So that's this one right here. So you might have noticed small difference in the bottles. This is the new style bottle. This is the old style bottle. This is how long I've been drinking their stuff. Like they've completely rebranded, and I've still got my old bottles. So the difference between the bourbon and the whiskey is this is a reused barrel. So this is a second use of a barrel. So it's the same mash bill. This is 2 years old. The other one was probably 2-ish years old. This one's 109.8 proof, though. And the biggest difference, right, is instead of that brand new barrel, this one's been used once.
Okay, right off the bat, the nose on the dark fired whiskey smells more like the White Dog. It's going back and forth. The main difference, little rich caramel is what just off the nose automatically is what is the difference for me between them off the nose.
Right.
But,
so as you reuse barrels, it loses its impact for both filtration and flavor adding. So effectively, charcoal can get saturated, right? So as it ages, it filters less. And after you dump it out and try to reuse it, it's got to go through all that already, used up, permeated, however you want to say it. You can use as fancy word as you want, right? And until it hits that new charcoal layer that hasn't been completely used up. And that's why, the difference between the bourbon and the whiskey is really pronounced, because it took 2 years for that bourbon to go that far. This had the same 2 years, so it's struggling to go further.
just off the top of my head here, and a random question: do you know if they ever do the bourbon longer than 2 years at the moment? Like, did they have a 4 or 5 year?
I have
release?
a single that they did longer, and it's magical.
I would think so, just by the.
Oh my god, it's like I went there. I didn't have a lot of money at the time when they released it, and I was like, I've got to get at least one of them, and I got it, and I was like, this is great. I was like, I'm gonna save up for like another month, come back and get another one, because I want to say it was like $70-some. And like I saved up, came back, and they were like, yeah, Mitch, you're an idiot. That was gone in like a week and a half. And I was like,
All right.
So not only that, so charcoal, throw this out here, super random, super nerdy fact. 1 gram of charcoal has 1,000 square meters of surface area. So that's where all of your color comes from, right? So it's all the whiskey touching that surface area of that charcoal, picking up that slight color. And the more whiskey you have that touches charcoal, the darker it'll get. Once that charcoal's been used up, aka second use barrels, that's why it's not quite as dark.
This, okay, for me, this is weird on the flavor just after having a drink of it. This tastes more like a scotch than I don't know, I think of bourbon. It's the same mash bill, right? Just
Exact
second
same.
fill. Exact same.
Just second fill. And it's about three proof lower.
But I mean, with this, you get a little bit of that phenolic note, a little coming through that you didn't before. This just seems like an aged Black Dog, where the other one you got more of that. Obviously, the much more impact from it, but just it's just neat to see how this coming back on the nose after having a drink smells a little more and feels more like a Scotch to me.
I would agree with that. First thing I get hit with on this is on the palate's tobacco. But it's like it's not just tobacco, it's like a lit cigar tobacco. Where there's just that, you get a little bit of ash to it.
The end.
Well, that's usually where you light it, unless you light yours in the middle.
Well, I guess start someplace. No, I'm sorry. I'm just trying to.
Weird
I wasn't thinking. I didn't think about the
Wisconsin
cigar until
shit.
you said it, and then I was thinking about the flavors, and then I said something in the middle of it.
You put one in in your mouth. I'll put one in mine, and we'll light in the middle. Lady of the Tramp, this thing.
How
God!
I want to know how that works. I'm sure they can roll that.
But Spencer Mav, yes. So eventually a barrel is no filter. That's just called a spent barrel. It happens after. So you can refresh barrels by scraping the char layer off and then recharring them. You can do that about 3 times. But eventually you're at a point that it's not adding nor subtracting any flavors.
So, okay, so you had one, like you were saying, it soaked for longer. It had, like I say, a 3 char, and it soaked. It was getting to the next layer. When you shipped off the next layer to redo it, how much deeper do you have to go into the wood afterwards?
A few millimeters. It's like 3 millimeters. You're,
I didn't know it was
taking
that.
off when you do that. And,
I was thinking bigger. That's all.
Oh, no.
Okay, I didn't know.
Get as many uses out of this barrel as you can, right? Because trees take a long time to regrow. So you're going for like a 3 millimeter shaving. So that's, like 0.3 of a centimeter, right? It's not a lot. You're just taking the very outside of that off, and then just effectively trying to char 3 millimeters deeper into that barrel when you do it again. Right. So that process is STR.
Shave, toast, and rechar.
Oh yeah. All right. There we go. Effectively.
I get a little more apple on this than on the bourbon.
Yep. The caramel, I think, covers it up more.
Right. So that we can, sneak into, adding flavors. Right. So, apple comes from oxidization. So when you have a second use barrel, it's not subtracting as much. It's not adding as much from the wood. So it gives those esters and all those other things that happen through oxidization more time or more breadth to play, let's say. Because the way your taste bud works is really interesting, right? Effectively, it's all about parts per million. Your taste buds cannot taste like this flavor below this many parts per million. You just can't, right? It will taste like water. But once it gets above it, you can start tasting it. And the higher it goes, the more you taste it. Simultaneously, your brain can only taste so many flavors at once. So, right, you pick up on the top however many flavors your brain can get. And then, your second sip, your brain's already expecting those flavors. So that's why your second sip tastes a little different. And then your third will taste a little different because your brain will start filtering out some of those flavors and it lets you taste the other ones that are there. But if there's less flavors there, other things that were kind of low on the list of things that you can taste go a lot higher. So suddenly, like we were tasting buttered popcorn and kind of like, to me, grilled char marks. Those are gone. Those flavors are down here. Whereas apple was probably always down here. But instead of having buttered popcorn and char here, it's closer to here now. So your brain's getting to the apple a lot quicker.
Mm-hmm. I'm getting like a smoky, it's like a smoky ripe apple with the skin from this. It's really neat. This is Mitch. This is playing into one of those sections where, as a tasting of 4 to 5 things or in an evening, it's been very enjoyable. It's a neat ride already. Just because these two end the complete. I don't want to say end differently, but the twist from the original is fantastic. It's just, and not to mention Kilkeegan again, but when we had all their smoked stuff, and then he went back and had their unsmoked malt, and you're like, holy shit! Like,
Yeah.
A, how come we never had this before? And B, like, I didn't know that was the base for, I had no idea that's, I got parts of it, but I didn't know that was the base and how that matured into the other things that you did. It's just neat. I'm excited about this. Sorry, everyone. I nerded out for a second. I got overwhelmed and I had to fucking get it out.
Because I have not been nerding out at all. Right?
That's what
I've got a nice coating of smoked corn in my mouth right now.
Nothing wrong
And
with that.
I like it. It's not dry either. It's
Yeah,
buttery,
which is something I love
buttery
about
smoked corn. Yeah.
For some reason, like the tannin structure on this is gorgeous. It doesn't dry your mouth out. It's not super, dry or tannic or acidic in any way. Like for some reason, the smoke just really helps. And also, Spencer, I don't think your brain is charcoal. I think it is pudding. Run on effectively slightly less electricity it takes to run a light bulb.
Not everybody.
Modification
Just you personally, Spencer.
Some people's might be Jell-O, might not be pudding. So that's a riff on a quote from someone. I don't remember. But, right.
I honestly, I'd have to say this. The corn flavor coming off of this would probably be one that would get the quote of good ass corn from Shannon, but we need to come up with some sort of Shannon corn rating. How many cobs is this? how many buttered cobs of good ass corn is this? But no, there's just a really, really nice buttery smoked corn flavor that's just lingering on there, and it's just really, really good.
That's all. We do have a corn tasting coming up. Maybe it should be rated by how many Shannons.
Just how many
Yeah.
Shannons? Just not.
There's only one Shannon.
There's only one Shannon. All right.
So the last whiskey we have is also by MB Roland. Surprise, surprise. So this is Kentucky Black Patch Whiskey, and this has been discontinued. So this is, surprise, surprise, the same mash bill, but at the 4th use of the barrel. So I never got the 3rd, but the 4th use. So this is nearing the point of a spent barrel. Like this barrel would probably not be used again without shaving it and recharring it. So this is batch 6. It's same mash bill, but it is 109.92 proof. So this is darn close to the proof of the whiskey we had before this.
I'm going to get a little water before I just open things up again. Which we'll be picking up soon. We're going to, when we're down at Distill America, have arranged for us to each be getting a few bottles of cantaloupe liqueur. So if we need to in the middle of the show, we can
Oh, there's going to
ourselves.
be I'm going to be getting a few of those.
They might be the official. Well, I talked to Dave. They could be the official drink refresher of my whiskey den. Your palad's blowing out. This is what it takes to get it back.
I am 1,000% behind that after the test that we put it through.
So that's awesome.
Huh. This is the fourth use on 2 years too.
This one's also about 2 years old. Yes.
What the heck?
So suddenly the filtering this is darn close to Black Dog with, in my opinion, a little bit of
But
caramel.
Yeah, just a little bit of caramel.
No, it pulls out a little bit of the plastic spoon, a little bit of the overripe fruit note from the Black Dog, but this is neat, softer than I would have expected on the nose.
So even though the barrel's almost spent, it's still like you really need that charcoal to help filter out some of those kind of less desirable notes, let's call them, or maybe harsher notes.
I like this. I like this nose a lot, but then when you really get into it, then you're getting the phenolic smell. But just like topically, it's like, oh, I like this. It's like a. I don't want it to sound wrong, but I guess who am I? Like if you ever one and you're like, what is that? That's a really nice candle. You know, it has that, and then you get in, you really dig into it, and you're like, no, it's not. Too close to the fire. But topically, it's got a really, really nice nose to it.
So yeah, girlfriend joined Morgan. We actually went to MB Roland on Saturday. Bottled my own bottle of rye from them. So I highly recommend going. Slight problem with MB Roland. It's near the Tennessee border. I live near the Indiana border. In case you didn't know, those two states do not touch. So it's a bit of a drive. Otherwise, I would probably work and or volunteer there.
Okay, that palate's different.
Yep.
Like
Drier.
smoky dusty corn.
Yeah, dry and a little bit more drying on the finish compared to the other ones.
Yeah.
Louisville. Is that what's going on?
Morgan's my girlfriend, and Shannon is Shannon. So
Shannon.
So apparently, we're getting a drink with Shannon. My girlfriend, ever the popular one. as opposed to Mitch, who spends his Monday nights hanging out with two other dudes on YouTube, right?
Yeah.
Well,
she's forcing you to be social.
Yeah.
Okay, right.
Okay, so this is just it's weird. It feels a lot lighter. I'm getting more baking spice notes in this. Little pepper. I'm not getting the apple from the last one. The noses on these are going through them, and I hadn't done it before. Are dramatically different.
It's insane the difference, right? And the only difference is what use of the barrel it is.
Like I just went back between the dark fired whiskey and the BP whiskey, and now the dark fire, I'm getting this white pepper note I wasn't getting.
Yeah.
And a floral note that I wasn't getting before there. That is on the bottom of the glass, at least, on the bottom rim.
Yeah, I get every sip I got, same thing. I was getting smoky, ashy, dusty corn, and then butter, and then that white pepper. And it is dry on the finish. I like that.
It's good. So
they've all been great, but that just for as a very large contrast to the others, because everything else had just this had just a very nice. I don't want to say wet finish, but not a dry finish. And then this one is just dry. It's very dry.
Do you feel like the BP, for me, almost drinks more like a wine? Like overall, the way it rolls through and everything. I mean, I get the smokiness, but I guess I don't always get as many the really dry tannic notes. There's not as many that suck the flavor out. That's not happening because it's drying it out. I'm starting to salivate after about 30 seconds. Like my body's coming back. It's not there. This is just.
I don't quite get the wine part because it's. I mean, it's almost like if you took you get an unpeated Islay whiskey. So if you had,
I get it. It's just a light.
If you had a corn whiskey, unpeated, made in Islay, that's this right here.
Who was it?
I guess it just tastes
Brooklotic
lighter.
just released a unpeated rye. I think it's Brooklotic. Available only in Islay.
Of course.
I'm sure.
It only cost you $2,800 to get a bottle. I like it. I mean, I like because these are all
Very
the
interesting.
same mash bill.
That is, I think, is what's the coolest part about is that that's the same mash bill, and that's what the differences you can pull from it, and only by decreasing in the barrel use. Basically, that's it. Wow.
So right, barrels as you use them get used up. They are a resource. So this, to me, is the easiest way to show. Right, losing flavors, because it's really hard to be like, oh, this got older as a bourbon. What does it taste like? Well, it's woodier. That's adding flavors. Like you're not subtracting something from the White Dog and getting wood, right? And same with Scotch. It's like, oh, this is a lot older. What does this taste like? And it's fruitier. That's changing flavors. That's estrifying, oxidizing, all that fun stuff. So. To me, this is the best way to show what filtering can do.
It's a neat structure. I'm happy to have them coming on because after tasting this, I'm so glad they did what they did because you can easily see how you could have two different brands or lineups between the bourbon and the dark fired bourbon and whiskey, uniquely different. Just using it, just reusing the barrel but using the same product and just, continuing to redo that. That is a great way to have multiple brands if you even wanted to from the same distillery, because those are distinct enough that I don't know if people would always correlate the same beginnings. That's neat. All right, Mitch, that's fucking awesome.
I'm gonna nerd out about MB Roland for about 2 minutes because I was just there. Went down there, they had a bunch of new stuff, so they're making brandy.
I saw that. I saw part of the table for that. I was intrigued. What's fruits, Mitch?
So it's so they only use Norton grapes. It's apparently just some local farmer. He ferments everything himself, and by ferments I mean he puts his grapes on a tarp with yeast on them to ferment, and then takes them there, and it's their job to distill it, and they don't necessarily mash it too much. They're just desperately trying to get it into the still, right? And they've got a paddle in the still, and the paddle is what does a lot of the work for them. So when I was there, they had 3 of them. They had a 6-year in a used barrel, a 3-year in a used barrel, and a 3-year in a new barrel. Unfortunately, they only had a few of, I think, the 3-year new barrel, so they weren't doing samples. And the 6-year used barrel was delicious. So I bought a bottle of that. And then for 420, because that is a very popular holiday here in Kentucky, they released their hemp bourbon.
I've seen a few people doing this. I'm intrigued.
It's weird. I ain't gonna lie. Apparently, also a DEA agent has to watch you distill it. So they're like, yeah, we don't like doing that much because there's so much oil in hemp seeds. So as they mill it, it's just like, oh, that doesn't look right? Because it'd be like milling grape seeds, right? It's just they're used for oil more than they're used for the grain properties. So the hemp bourbon was trippy. That's
cool. We had something. Mike got to taste something kind of similar that had something similar, but it was more in a gin basket. Passing through, I believe, was the way it was.
There's no DEA agents involved in this one.
Yeah, no DEA agents involved in that one. But it sounded like it was in the gin basket or through part of the process.
This is corn, hemp, and barley. Like there's no gin basket. It's just like, yeah, this is part of the mash bill.
Oh, okay.
I think the one Pat's talking about was honey and weed.
Yeah. and to be honest, the smell was a little overpowering, but the taste was
Smelled like shit.
Yeah, but
Let's be honest.
Doesn't that mean it's good? No.
Yeah, but the taste was pretty good.
It tasted nothing at all like the nose. It was very nice.
Yep.
Yeah.
So when you go down there, right, you get 4 samples because Kentucky has archaic sampling laws, and they're only allowed to give you a certain amount.
Right. Question: Can you go back for another tour?
Yes.
Okay.
I don't know if they'll let you do it on the same day, though.
I'm just saying, is there a way to cheat
back
this?
with like a different hat on? And like, whoa. You might have met my brother Joe earlier. I'm Mitch. But so Morgan and I split our samples so we could get 8 samples, right? But at that point, you're getting like an 1/8 of an ounce instead of a 1/4 of an ounce. And it's just like, okay, right? This is interesting. And then it's gone. And you're like, son of a, I guess I got to buy the bottle, right?
That's how they get you.
That's how well, hey, that's the right way to do it. What one of each of these is your favorite? Do you guys think out of the ones we had this evening?
I'm gonna say dark fired bourbon.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, my only experience before was the dark fired rye, and it said that was a while ago. But the dark fired bourbon, if it was sold near me, I would buy it a lot.
Yeah,
that was really tasty.
I think the apple that you get in the whiskey more so is underneath with that extra layer of just caramel and some other really nice buttery flavors. Yeah. Kind of put it over the top for me.
Did you pour the blend yet?
No, I didn't. Hold on. We're in the middle. We'll do that here before we get going. A little touch of this.
And Renita's playing grandma tonight. I think that's awesome.
I know. It is awesome. And she's is that one of the first babies watching the show? Should we I
know there's been a lot of them.
Should the baby get a bottle? Like
there's been a lot of them conceived during the show. We know that.
Well, that's true. There's been a couple
with something we were drinking on the show, right?
Well, I don't know anything about
it. Probably more like I'm done watching these jackasses. Let's get it on.
Hey, if I can put you in the mood, that's saying something. Like that's you might need help. Unless, of course, you're my girlfriend, at which point you're an amazing person, and I love you.
I don't love you. Today being the 1st of May, and the conversation that we just had. So every year this gets brought up, because someone has had familiarity with James Taylor. James Taylor was my wife's favorite, and I finally got to hear him tell this story live 5 years ago now. So they said that his dad would say this thing every 1st of May. They all knew he was going to say it. They just didn't know when. But he would get this look, and he would finally say it, and he would say, "Hooray, hooray, 1st of May. Outdoor fucking begins today." It's way funnier when James Taylor says it. But then he also eventually wrote a song called 1st of May, but which is not about that, but it was.
Oh yeah,
is it?
No.
I don't know. I like the nose on the blend. I'm almost afraid to taste it though.
Yeah, I was gonna say it's a little wild.
It's pretty kettle corn on the nose.
Yes, that's a big finish on it. I'd say kettle corn is the finish. And then the beginning of it's a little chaos for me from trying to peg that down for a second here. I think it might need a little more time to marry in the glass. Yeah, see? But just wait for the finish to wear out and you'll get that kettle
ashy.
Corn. Yeah. But then the kettle corn comes in after. It's like, or my tongue started to salivate a bit.
Yeah, it jumps. It jumps from ashy to back to kettle corn.
So, Pat, what was your favorite?
Oh, the bourbon by far. No,
No
I'm not saying-
hesitation, just the bourbon by far.
Well, I'm gonna honestly, just that extra for me. It's extra titch of flavors. What happened in the other ones was neat. I was really surprised by the dark fired whiskey, how much to me that that appley note just kind of lended itself more to like a Scotch to me in my brain for a minute. But I was gonna say just it was a more bold, robust flavor. I was gonna say if I had to sit down with one continually all the time, that would be the one. So no, I'm not disrespecting the other ones. I like the other trips, and I would go on them anytime, but that one's got the mark for me.
Yeah, I liked them all. I would be very happy to have all of them. The bourbon, I could see going through a lot of that.
Bourbon is my favorite as well. It's the first one I had too, right? It's first love.
Yeah.
So.
Ooh, that's awesome.
Yeah.
All right.
That was fun. That was a lot of fun.
Yeah, that was a good time, Mitch. We're
Glad you all enjoyed it.
the next what the hair 1, 2. I don't. Oh, well, let's go over this. Let's next week, like we said, our Distill America show with Fred and Adam. Make sure to come out for that one because that's going to be exciting. We're going to learn about what's new, what they're doing at the Breeze Field. If you're lucky enough to gotten like the super VIP, normally I am not jealous of those people, but you're getting some old Stutzel Weller this year, so I am a titch. I wouldn't mind being in that room. So if you got that, excellent. But like we said, we will be down there, every one of us. Another meeting of the minds and whiskey people. So it'll be fun. If you're coming, feel free to reach out. We might be posting some things that we'll be doing or places we'll all be attending while we're there, so that if you are there, you can come out and hang out with us. But before Distill America, on I think it's the 15th, pretty sure it's the 15th, we're going to be pulling a couple people that used to be whiskey fans that ended up with jobs in the industry, either a distillery or I don't know what you call it, Josh.
They are no longer fans.
They're no longer fans. They now are partisan.
Yeah.
They have a stance on who the best whiskey is. And
I don't know about that.
no, that's true. It might not be their own.
It'll be one of my questions to find out. And I don't think he'll change or it's a spoiler, but Josh was repping Iron Root to make enough money to buy more Balcones, and I'm just wondering if he's still doing it.
He was big Balcones before Iron Root. I remember that. But then again, he was everybody Texas.
It was his first love.
Yeah, well, that's hard.
Don't tell Gretchen.
It's like Kansas City barbecue. A lot of good ones, but
yeah. But I was gonna say Josh will be coming on because he's working on Iron Root. Ben will be coming on because he is working at Kentucky Artisan.
Is that confirmed?
That it's confirmed. There could be some type of last minute thing, but yes, that is
okay.
It's on the books. It's happening. Benji is gonna find his way home. That's the rumor.
No regrets.
And then Ed, who is in a distillery that is in southern Wisconsin, but has recently been purchased. So I was going to say they are in the process of renaming the distillery, and I'm checking with him to see if they have gotten that done yet, because we don't want to be putting out any misinformation about the new owners. But the new owners of the old distillery, which was Dog and Shrub, have, just from talking to Ed a little bit, have opened up an opportunity of doing a lot of things and already expanded the barrel room quite a bit and adding things and making production of their product to, get into that next level of stuff. Because they were just kind of, when we were there, they were just kind of setting up stuff, getting the barrel room ready, having some barrels. Now they're starting to fill the barrel room with things and starting some unique projects as well too. Like there's goals with some of the other things in mind of it. So, but I don't know the name, so I'm not getting in trouble beforehand.
the Knights who used to say knee,
Yeah.
the distillery formerly known as
Yes.
Duncan Shrub.
Yeah, it's kind of the way it is right now. But we like, and we'll try to have our shirts on the whole show. And that's the cue from a long time ago. That's long. That's a long time ago. You had to be. You had to be.
We should see if we can. We should see if we can get Ed to say Balcones, and then if he does, then we all take our shirts off.
Oh Lord, am I gonna lose my real job on Tuesday? Whatever.
All of a sudden, Mitch's street next week is just black. Nah, I gotta kind of go this route.
Mitch, just adjust your camera.
Yeah, it's a
Adjust the
headshot.
camera. It's like
See?
mine. You're only gonna get here up on me, so
Yeah, right here.
it's all good.
You gotta lean
Yeah.
in. It's okay.
Yeah, move way
No one
in.
knows.
Yeah.
Let's see here. Is that possible? I don't know.
What if you got a temporary tattoo of the company name?
Oh, I'm sure they would love that even more. I could drop it to
Okay.
low def. That's about what I got. I don't know.
What about a temporary tattoo of the competitor?
I'm sure they would love that quite
Yeah.
possibly less. Like, that would, especially if I show up on Tuesday, like, hey, Mitch, could you come with us to the office? Not saying you need to take your shirt off, but we have some questions to ask
Yeah.
about some
I'm
decisions.
gonna be a little late. Just across
Yeah.
the chest.
It was video editing. Yeah.
All right. Well, I think that's good for this show, but we do have, like he said, 3 other shows. What are the other ones, Mitch?
So effectively adding flavors. So, right, like we've all had super olds, or we've all had super oaky bourbon, but it's not just kind of that oak flavor profile that oak adds. There's a couple, 2, 3, maybe dozen flavors that oak adds. Then there's changing flavors, which is all about oxidization and esterification. And then there's going to be part 4, where it's just like funky flavors and fun little experiments that
I'm intrigued.
can,
I feel like that's the
Yeah.
last 4 or 6 we have, and I'm intrigued. I'm intrigued about that.
you haven't gotten any of the funky ones yet.
Oh. Well, there's quite a slew on the table, so I'm excited. But thank you, Mitch, for taking us on the ride this evening. It was fantastic.
Thanks for letting us ride the wood.
Yeah,
Well, I didn't want to go. I
thank
didn't know
you
how
for
deep down
saying
that road I wanted to go. All right. But yeah, remember, stop it. I don't know. We're just going to leave on that note. I don't have a good way to leave anymore. Thanks, Mike.
You're saying we're going to leaf that one as it
You're going to leave that one as it is.
Mm.
And remember to, fuck it. It's not the size of them that matters. It's the love of whiskey. Cheers, everyone.
Cheers.
Cheers.
What?